Does USC have Heisman number 9 in the wings? Find out. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Trojan Conquest Live, our weekly show for Trojan family and college football fans in general. Just want to hear more and more what's going on at the pulse of USC football. Today, we're going to be talking about a big recruiting weekend going on at USC, moving into some recruiting news, then some news and notes from around the program during spring break. And then at the end of the show, we're going to go into and have a little bit of conversation with you guys. Later on, I'll be putting in the chat, I'll be putting a link that you can come in and talk to us at the end of the show, as well as we are an interactive show. So we are looking at your comments and your questions throughout the show. We're going to hold some of those for the very end. And also at the very end, talk about some of the great comments you guys have left in our videos. So speaking of which, the first thing on the docket today is going to be the news that we have a really big recruiting weekend coming out this week. This weekend, there's a lot of big name recruits coming in. Last year, they did the same kind of similar thing where they brought a bunch of recruits out, swim around, have a good time. A lot of these things happen because you have these bonds that are growing between the players. Anyone that watched some of the clips from the All-Star games, seeing Deuce Robinson, right, and Zach Branch, these are where these great relationships begin to build. Rick, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, this is the first kind of kickoff, the pool party this weekend, a week before the spring game next weekend. And really, this is the beginning of the 2024 cycle. Yes, it started a few months ago, but USC is poised to kick off this weekend and continue. There'll be another big bash at the end of June, and we'll get into that at a later date. But perfect weather, finally a SoCal weather today. And hey, we're here on a special night. It's Saturday. Thanks for joining us. It's Saturday night. And I don't know about you, Tim, but Saturday night about 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock now. It's good time for a brew. It's tailgating. So, hey, everybody that's out there, text your friends and invite them to the tailgate. And speaking of tailgate, because we're going to be talking about wide receivers later, the wide receiver room. I don't know if you mentioned that, Tim, but I've got a beer for you. So crack open a beverage, join our tailgate. This is called Beast Mode. It's a double IPA from a brewery in Carlsbad, California, one I've never tried before. So I'm going to crack this bad boy open. Oh my goodness. The brewery is called Rolliver. I'm sorry, Rollure, which stands for the new ruler. So how appropriate. We got a double IPA, and USC's got a loaded beast mode wide receiver room that we will talk about. And it's like 2 deep in that wide receiver room at least. And Rollure from Carlsbad, California, meaning new ruler. Well, guess what? USC is going to be the new ruler for the last year of the Pac-12 as we transition into the Big Ten. So cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining. And let's rock and roll.
Yeah, so just a quick reminder to everyone out there, we next week, actually a week from today, is going to be the spring game, April 15th at 12 o'clock. If you are in Southern California and you can't somehow get out to this, I'm assuming if you're watching USC football in April, you're diehards like Rick and I. This is a great game. I've been bringing my kids out for years to this. It's a great time to see the team. You get to see some of the guys that we've heard about and recruiting for months and months and months, if not years. And now they're going to be showcased next Saturday.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So next Saturday, the 15th, is the spring game. Join us on the 16th, our normal day on Sundays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We will review and break down the spring game. And we have a special guest that will be joining us, friend of the show, former standout wide receiver, John Jackson. JJ will be joining us next Sunday night to give his analysis of what he saw at the spring game. So it's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. And then going into later on for the show, the next thing we're talking about is our quotes and notes. And this is the section of the tailgate where we basically begin to talk about maybe rumors, maybe comments made by coaches, maybe a little analysis on our part. But there's a lot of news coming out. You guys should be checking out. There's a number of sources where you can get some of these interviews. We thought we'd just grab a couple that we thought were really interesting and highlight them for you. Rick's first. What's the first one you got, Rick?
Yeah. As you know, we just had had a practice today, and it was a scrimmage. And it was the 11th practice, got 4 more, concluding next Saturday in the spring game. And Lincoln Riley highlighted some players on defense today, including Anthony Lucas, Sierra Wright, and Damani Jackson. He said Lucas had a scoop and score, and he also believes he was in on a sack. So it's great to hear these 3 names, 2 of which didn't play really. One was a transfer, Anthony Lucas, and Damani Jackson just really didn't have much playing time as he was recovering from an ACL injury. And it's great to hear Sierra Wright. Again, we've heard his name throughout the spring as being a solid performer in the secondary. So congrats to Sierra. Also, Riley had mentioned that linebacker Rajon Davis is continuing his development and riding the continued momentum during spring. And he's one of the first guys this spring to get gold plated. If you remember, Tim, gold plating is they'll come out with the Cardinal helmets. And if you earn, your gold plating, it's by doing everything that's asked of you and standing out. And so it's great to hear Rajon Davis was the first one to be gold plated. That's fantastic news because Rajon played sparingly last year, Tim. What do you expect to see from Rajon this year?
Yeah, coming out of modern day, he was a big time recruit, and everyone's excited. I've been excited to see him play. I know that just through social media, I think he's had his ups and downs, but he's kept his head down, and he's worked hard, and he's trying to earn that playing time. He got into that Cotton Bowl, and when he did, and when he has been able to come in, he has flashed, and we saw a lot of athleticism saw some great tackles, shooting the gaps. I think that he has the ability. Now he has a full year in the system. Last year, maybe he was a little bit green. This year, he has added a knowledge of the defense to go along with his talent. So I really do expect a lot of things coming in a very, very crowded linebacker room.
So let me ask you, Lincoln Riley had mentioned there's a room that he thinks is the deepest on the team. I'm going to ask you, what do you think he said? What's his opinion of the deepest room?
So I personally, so we're talking defense or offense or all over?
All over. He said this room is perhaps the deepest room on the team.
Okay. So I'm probably going at wide receiver. If you had asked me that one, is that correct?
I was thinking the same thing, but Lincoln Riley says now the linebacker room is perhaps the deepest room on the team. So I don't know if that's,
Well, you have a lot of depth, right? You have a lot of depth.
There's a tremendous amount of depth. But when I compare that to wide receivers, which we'll be talking about later, I think the wide receivers are just filthy. But it's great to hear them because there is a lot of depth on linebacker. And with the emergence of Rajon Davis, you bring over Jamel Muhammad, you get Romeo Height back, you got Mason Cobb. Yeah, there is a lot more talent in that linebacker room. And I'm sorry, I forgot Tackett Curtis. Got a bromance with Tackett Curtis. You can't forget Tackett. So, yeah, I can see his point. And you know what? I would love for the linebacker room to be more deep than the wide receiver room any day.
Depth is great. But what I'm really liking from the linebacker room is the experience. You can't. I mean, obviously you need talent, and we're looking at these are all highly recruited guys. These are all talented guys. But the one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing we have Mason Cobb in the middle. That's my guy. He's going to be our core. I believe he's going to be our corner piece. He's going to tie this whole linebacker room together. He's got a lot of experience. In a few interviews I've seen from him, he's very mature, speaks well, sounds like a leader. Then you also had Shane Lee. Man, that guy was he was a big leader on last year's team, just kind of building up momentum and bringing what he brought, from a winning program like Alabama and saying, hey, this is how winners play. Now you got a Mason Cobb who can back it up. You know, he was a great linebacker for the Cowboys over at Oklahoma State. He's got a lot of experience. But then you also now have Eric Gentry, who was a freshman All-American. Then he had followed up with a great season last year. He had some injuries, but now he's back fully healthy after the surgery. He's not participating in spring ball, but he'll be 100% ready to go for the fall. So with those three guys, and then, you know, bringing in, like you said, Tackett Kurz. So they brought along the Garrison Madden, right? And bringing those guys up, and then Rajon Davis, another year in the system. It's a very deep, very talented team. And those first three guys will bring a lot of experience.
And that's what we need. We need some experience. And speaking of quotes and notes, I think you have one from Coach Nua.
Yeah, well, it's kind of in the same vein. So he's talking about depth, right? Like I'm talking about. And so when you have depth issues, and that's what he was saying. Last year, he was pretty proud of the guys. He said, I think last year's group did a great job for us, maximizing their potential. But the one thing that was missing last year was just numbers. And so now with the defensive line, you're hearing in the from a lot of the interviews, you know, because we can't see the actual scrimmages or the practices, but just from a lot of the conversations that people are having, you're hearing about players standing out, big guys, strong guys. We've been talking about just the sheer size of guys in the middle, like a Kion Bars, just massive human beings, kind of solidifying that middle, right? But then you also have the young guys. You got a young guy in Anthony Lucas who's getting a lot of airtime. People talk about him a lot. The fact that he's coming along, that he's flashing, making plays. I think Shotgun Spratlings made a comment about he heard that he did a strip and score, I believe, or like Keely Yor, I can't remember, one of the two, but he's actually making plays now in the scrimmages. So he's been a standout in practice. He's been a number of interviews recently with him in them. So he's earning some face time. It's going to be interesting to see now that they have this depth, how much farther this defensive line can carry the Trojans.
Yeah, Nua says about Anthony Lucas, it's great when you see big guys move well. He's a big human that moves very, very well and loves the game. That's the one thing that separates everybody, how much passion they have for the game, and he definitely has it. So that's great to hear. Obviously, it sounded like he, you know, the scoop and score today, there's an example of it. And moving on, Lincoln Riley had also mentioned after today's practice, he says that the separation of talent between the upper tier this year of the roster and the rest of the roster is much smaller, whereas last season the difference was more noticeable, which translates, hey, we've got depth. You know, we just talked about the linebacker room. We'll talk about the wide receiver room. But at defensive line, you had mentioned a Kion Bars who's going to plug the middle. You got Jack Sullivan on the edge. You got Jamel Muhammad who's going to be on the edge. Mason Cobb back there, middle linebacker. And, you know, you got CRW from Arizona in the secondary. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of extra talent there on defense. And this is the second year. This is the second year of Lincoln Riley's program. And, you know, we saw what happened in year 2 with Pete Carroll. And speaking of Pete Carroll, and it was a beautiful day today, I'm golfing. I went golfing, and a shout out to Matt. If you're out there, my buddy and I went golfing, and there was 2 other guys that joined us that we didn't know. And he saw the head covers on my clubs. He's like, "Oh, you're an SC guy?" And I said, "Oh yeah, you know, Trojan." He goes, "Oh man, so am I." And I said, "Well, how long have you been watching SC?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I was a kid and I saw all the Pete Carroll." I said, "Well, God bless you, you know." So good job, Matt. It was a great time golfing with you today. And this is year 2, baby. This is what's going to happen. So, hey, met a Trojan out on the golf course and invited him to our show.
Yeah, awesome. Getting back to that defensive line, a couple of things. You brought up Jack Sullivan from Purdue. Yeah, he's a big guy. What I'm liking about the depth here that Nua's talking about is they're bringing in. So he's from Purdue. He's got a number of snaps. Both Kion Bars and Jack Sullivan are seniors. Again, on that theme of talent, size, and depth, just like the linebackers were getting that on the defensive line. That's what Nua is really trying to get at. On top of that, we just talked about the fact that Anthony Lucas is another. He's not a small human being. These guys we're talking about are really, really big guys. And one person to watch, a lot of noise was made about, you know, coming in, the fact that Corey Foreman, the #1 basically recruit in the country, came into USC, has his struggles the first couple of years. But I'm thinking now that they're moving him back inside. They're moving it back inside, put his hand in the dirt. A number of coaches, including Coach Newell, have said that he feels a little more comfortable inside like that. And so look for him also to start making some plays. He's been mentioned a couple of times. So sometimes it may not be, maybe it's just the situation you're in. You just change the situation up a little bit. You get another year in the system, and some of these guys are really going to show out.
Yeah, most definitely. And speaking of recruiting and this kickoff weekend with the pool party, earlier in the week, Lincoln Riley was asked, has there been an uptick in recruiting this year versus last year? And have there been any changes, made with recruiting by the staff? And he talked about capitalizing on the momentum that's been building within the program from last season, and very excited of what's upcoming. He said there's, quote, cool announcements, unquote, coming soon that will add to that. And there's speculation that the plans for the new facilities that were discussed prior to Lincoln Riley being hired, I think there's going to be there's some speculation that the new facilities announcement will be coming along, as well as some more detail on NIL, whether that's another collective or program at USC. That's so stay tuned on that. But facilities and NIL is speculated to have an announcement. I would guess it would be sometime right before the spring game or after the spring game to kind of build some momentum as we head into the 2024 recruiting season. What do you think of that, Tim?
A lot of people made a big deal about the fact that Lincoln Riley was running away from going to the SEC. That's why he couldn't handle it. The SEC just means more, and he's got to get out of there because he can't compete in the SEC. The truth of the matter was in Oklahoma is that Lincoln Riley wasn't being supported the way he felt he could. They're asking him to go up against guys like Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, big schools investing lots of money, Clemson, in their program, in recruiting staff, and just support staff in general, and in facilities. And he kept pushing the Oklahoma administration, saying, hey, we need this. I need this. We'll do better with this. And he is getting pushback. If you want a little more in-depth detail about that, go over to Matt Zemek. He did a great series with an Oklahoma insider, an Oklahoma beat writer, and which covered the fact that the topics that I'm talking about. You go over to Trojans Wire and you'll be able to find it. But at the end of the day, he wasn't being supported. I believe that's when that's when Mike Bohn walked in and said, hey, man, we're hearing you're not too happy. Here's a blank check. Here's what we have planned for you. Here's what we're going to do for you. You want staff? We'll give you staff. You want facilities? We're going to build facilities. I think this is round 2. So they got their feet wet. They got in there. They got the team together. They got the culture built. The recruiting's gearing up. NIL is finally starting to work here at USC. I think you're right. I think there might be some news on the NIL front, but also I think this is where we're going to start hearing about the football-only facility that they've been talking about doing for quite a while now.
Yeah, so we'll stay tuned on that. Maybe we'll have some more information for next Sunday's show, but some exciting things happening around Troy.
Any more news or notes?
That pretty much sums it up. Let's go into game time. What do you think?
So yeah, the great part about, so we were talking, Rick gave me the question and the answer from Lincoln Riley was linebacking room. But I'm just going to bear with me for 1 minute here. USC is in a rare position. Last year I went around back and forth with some Ohio State fans, one really big one in particular, but I'm not going to name by name. And I was saying that USC had the best wide receiver room. And when you have a guy, you have the returning Blitnikoff Award winner in Jordan Addison. You have guys like John Jackson III. You have guys following up like a Kyle Ford, a former 5-star. And you have Gary Bryant Jr. These guys, were significant ball players. They're great receivers. And USC just lost all of them. And I'm going to say possibly, although all these receivers could be starters in any program. Believe me, these guys will be starting in other programs throughout the country. I'm thinking USC might even get better. And that is not a knock on any of the receivers I just named. It's just talking about the players that we've just brought in, as well as the players we do have here having an additional year in Riley's system. So if possible, bear with me. I think that we might actually have a better wide receiver room than we had last year.
And you don't forget CJ Williams, the freshman out of Mater Dei, right, who transferred to Wisconsin. Yeah. So there's 5 receivers, and CJ will be probably the best or second best wide receiver on that team. And so that's five receivers. Yes, and there's talk about Ohio State being wide receiver U, and rightly so. Hey, they've won games. They've had a lot of great receivers. But like you said, Tim, you lose 5 receivers. Jordan Addison, C.J. Williams, Kyle Ford transferring to UCLA, Gary Bryant Jr., who was a 4-star recruit coming out of Centennial High School, a great high school here in Southern California. He's yet to name a destination for his transfer. And then you have John Jackson III. And John Jackson III, congratulations to him. He's got his master's degree, and he's a graduate transfer who's yet to determine his spot. But hey, he wants to get playing time and live out his dream to make it to the NFL. So congratulations to him. So there's 5 wide receivers that are gone. But you bring in this class, obviously Deuce Robinson. You bring in Zach Branch, the #1 wide receiver in the country, 5-star out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, Nevada. Makai Lemon, who was initially a 5-star, but graded out as a 4-star top 50 player.
Let's slow down a little bit, Rick. So let's go over some of these guys. So why don't we start with some of the guys that have been around a while? Let's start with Brendan Rice. Brendan Rice is a guy that kind of emerged on the stage, the son of Jerry Rice, one of the greatest receivers of all time. Some people say the greatest. And he came over from AA Boulder, aka Colorado University, to USC, and really worked his way into the starting lineup. Had his moments throughout the season. I thought maybe had a couple drops here and there. He probably wants back, but really put it all together in that Cotton Bowl.
Yeah. And you saw the growth in Brendan Rice. And the guy's got the size. He's not fast, but he's improved his ball handling, his catching skills. And he had a breakout game in that Cotton Bowl. And that's what I think is the kind of the ceiling for him. That's the expectation. So he's a big body receiver. He adds a certain skill set for this team. And people probably chuckle when you say AA Boulder or AA Eugene, but let's kind of like, let me give you my explanation of that. These kids that are 4 or 5-star players, they've been playing football for a long time. They've been in 7-7 leagues. Here in Southern California specifically, if you are a projected 4 or 5-star player, you go to Mater Dei or St. John Bosco. You transfer when you're a freshman. That's where you're going, and so they jump from 7-on-7 leagues every year. In fact, that's how it is in sports, youth sports today. Whether it's AAU basketball, AAU wrestling, club soccer, you're jumping every year to a better team. So it's kind of ironic because the NCAA had these rules where you had to sit out a year before the transfer portal really took off a few years ago. But here in Southern California, Mater Dei, they've got attorneys on retainer to challenge CIF should they not allow a transfer. And CIF puts their hands up. They don't even want to fight it anymore. So when you talk about, it's kind of ruining the game, the transfer portal, no, this is youth sports. This is what it's about. It's about going to the best team. And so that AA Eugene,
they might be single A actually at this year. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah. So basically these players that are now utilizing the transfer portal, they want to showcase. And that's what these players do, is they want to showcase their talents. So they might be a graduate transfer like a Jack Sullivan. Does he want to stay at Purdue? They got a new coaching change. Hey, I want to show out and I want to join USC and have an opportunity for a college football playoff in my last year of eligibility. And maybe I have a chance to impress scouts and get drafted in the NFL. Same thing with the Kion Bars. He's been second team all Pac-10 defensive lineman at Arizona. CRW, same thing. Last year, it was the running back, Travis Dodd. So that's kind of the mentality.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, it's all tongue in cheek. I don't mean to insult anybody out there. It's from Colorado, for the Colorado, or from Arizona, or from the Ducks in Oregon. It's just my little joke, because if you look over the last couple of years, they pulled a lot. So 2 years ago, they pulled a lot of guys, or the year before, we pulled a lot of guys from Colorado. This year, we've grabbed some guys from Arizona. And so I'm just making like a lighthearted joke about the fact that a lot of the Pac-12 is now becoming kind of like a farm system for USC. I'm really wondering, we should keep an eye on this, how that happens as USC moves on to the Big Ten, depending on how things go with this TV contract for the Pac-12. The conference might lose a lot of luster if they're not, these players aren't able to play in front of a big audience, and therefore build their brand, to build their NIL. So there's a great question, great comment here by Donnell Smith. Brandon Rice said he won the team race. He might be pretty fast. I didn't hear that, but if he's saying that, and if he did actually win the race, going against guys like Zach Branch, Damani Jackson, and Brown, these guys all have legit track speed, amongst other guys on the team. So if he actually won this race, I'm wondering if it was, what is this, like 200? Is this a 40-yard dash? Is it 100? Whatever it is. But regardless, if you're even being talked about in the same speed range as the guys I just named, you do have elite speed. So yeah, I'm looking for great things coming from him. Another receiver that got a lot of playing time last year is returning, had a little bit of injury trouble towards the middle to end of the season, was Mario Williams, transferred over from Oklahoma. Came over with Riley, came over with his quarterback, Caleb Williams, and has shown, my favorite thing about him is when you get the ball in his hands, he has a nose going towards that goal line. There were a couple plays this year where he ran through about 7 guys. He couldn't be tackled in a phone booth. He definitely has athleticism and that speed.
Yeah, no, Mario he's got a special talent, and he's got a nose for the ball, very quick. He had some issues with drops, and obviously in that Cotton Bowl, everybody's going to remember that muff return, but he's a special talent. He can make the big plays. He's really got to focus in on making all the plays, because he's sensational and makes the big plays, but he has some drops there. Another player that is an example of want to step up and obviously play with Caleb Williams, Dorian Singer, wide receiver transfer from Arizona. And this guy lit it up against USC. I think he had, some close to 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And so he put his name in the portal, and here he is at USC. So that is another talent that's going to be added to addition to Mekhi Lemon, Zach Branch, and there's another 6'5" receiver.
Hey, Rick, don't get ahead of yourself. Let me get here. Correct. I agree with Dorian Singer. It's not just his catches he was making, but it's the type of catches he was making. He's making fingertip catches, one-handed catches in that game. And in the world of NIL, if you want to get the attention of another coach, let's say you're at an Arizona and you want to go to an Alabama, or you want to go to Ohio State or USC. Well, a great way to do that is to ball out. And so Rick was actually, we were talking about Rick, and he brought up a great point, Rick. You said, not only we always get, in the Pac-12, we always get everyone's best game, but even more so now, it's an added energy to this, is the fact that a lot of kids are doing almost like a tryout, because maybe they might want to become Trojans in the future. And so a guy like Dorian Singer, who just balls out, is a perfect example of how we're going to be getting everyone's best A game, because they might want to get on the radar of some of our position coaches. So
Tim, are you saying I'm getting ahead of myself? Am I faster than Brendan Rice? I got some wheels, man. I got to slow it down.
Well, right. No. So who's next? Who do you want to talk about next?
There's another special talent that came from Red Mountain High School in Arizona. A lot of people, when you talk about Arizona, you're thinking of Deuce Robinson at 6'6". We got the other twin tower, 6'5" wide receiver, Jacoby Lane. So Jacoby Lane is slight of build. I'm guessing he's probably 190 pounds, but the dude's got a catch radius, okay? He's got like stick 'em on his hands. Some of his tape is just sick. You've seen Jacoby Lane. Why don't you share your thoughts on the 6'5" receiver out of Red Mountain High School?
Well, he's going to be like that other option, Deuce Robinson. I'm going to be interested to see losing Ford, a big receiver, losing Epps as well. We lost a lot of height between those two guys, but it has been replaced with Jacoby Lane. and has been replaced with Deuce Robinson. But they're, like you just explained, they're different builds. They have different builds. Jacoby Lane's a little more sleek, more slender. He's not probably, but he still can make those difficult catches. I've seen him go over the middle. I haven't seen him go over the middle against safeties, collegiate safeties, but I have seen him make some tough catches. Some of his high school film. He's got just huge hands, huge wingspan. He can make his catch radius is massive, a lot like Deuce Robinson. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what he might be able to do. Let's move back to some of the guys also got some playing time on the team, some returners. They got some action. Michael Jackson III. If you guys caught him last year, he flashed in a couple of games where he would just take a quick slip screen and just on both occasions actually took it to the house. One from about 15, 20 yards out. The other one from a lot farther. This guy has wheels. He's waiting his time. He knows he's in a crowded room, but he is starting to get a little more touches and looks in practice.
Yeah, Michael Jackson, also another recruit out of the Las Vegas area. And here's the thing: is defense is key in on last year. Obviously, Jordan Addison, Mario Williams. They'll key in on I'm blanking right now. Brendan Rice, and there's guys like Michael Jackson or Kyron Ware-Hudson that are open, right? And these guys can break tackles, they can run routes, they're fantastic receivers, and so they are very capable. And it tells you something when you have a CJ Williams out of Modern Day, you have John Jackson III, you have Kyle Ford transferring. Kyle Ford, 6'5". He had to see the writing on the wall with Jacoby Lane and Deuce Robinson most likely coming to USC, and then it happened that he moved on to UCLA. Is because he knew he was going to get fewer catches. So again, one of the reasons why I chose beast mode, double IPA, is because this wide receiver room is beast mode, and we're going to have basically double 4 wide receiver sets, rotations. You have first and second kind of strings coming in. And however Lincoln Riley's going to utilize the skill sets, whether it's the height, it's the speed. And by the way, we haven't even really touched upon Zach Branch. And there's, Ray League Brown, who's going to be put in space. But Zach Branch.
Okay, go ahead. I'm trying to reel you back. Hold on a second. The guy just made a comment. Let's talk about our starters, then we'll move into our new studs. We do have a lot of new studs coming in, but I kind of want to keep it in order. Somebody, I was trying to look for his comment, was trying to say to us the fact that we left out well, he basically was calling us out for leaving Taj Washington out, and that was gonna be my stick, because in the room last year where everyone's looking at Jordan Addison, everyone's looking at Mario Williams coming over from Oklahoma, and then the big flashing of Brendan Rice in his big news. The guy was consistent, and the guy who was a leading returner in receptions on the team is actually Taj Washington. He's that guy. He's tough. He gets you those underneath passes all the time. He can stretch the field as well. He's a great talent, and believe me, we were not forgetting him. It's just the fact that in this room full of all these headliners, all these big names, that's what always happens to Taj Washington. And I wanted to emphasize that point is he's almost, and it's a shame that he's almost an afterthought, but coming over to the transfer portal and what he's done for the Trojans is just consistently produce and make catches.
Tim, you came in, you deflected the pass. I was going to talk about Taj Washington, and hey, you got to let me flow. Taj Washington is just like a Michael Jackson III and Kyron Ware-Hudson. Hey, who are you going to cover, right? Can't cover everybody. But yeah, no, obviously Taj Washington. Each of them with special skill sets.
Right. And then another returner that hasn't gotten the kind of airtime but he's still there is going to be not a returner, sorry, is the fact that we have Kyron Hudson. And I know you were high on Kyron Hudson from Modern Day, Rick. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, no, Kyron Ware-Hudson is a great receiver. And Kyron Ware-Hudson, Michael Jackson, and like Taj Washington. Taj Washington had some great catches last year. And he, again, this is going to be his 3rd year. He transferred from Memphis. Those 3 guys are very similar because when you have 4 wide receivers out there, these guys are going to they know how to get open. and they are great receivers. So while you're, let's say, covering Deuce Robinson, you're covering Dorian Singer, and you're covering Brendan Rice, let's say, and you've got to check out the running backs. Those guys, like a Taj, a Michael Jackson, or a Kyron Ware-Hudson, they're going to be open. So yes, look at the depth, and that's why I disagree with Lincoln Riley about the linebacker room. The linebacker room is so much better. I agree. I understand why he said that, but this wide receiver room is beast mode. When you can lose 5 wide receivers and you reload with the talent USC has, it's sick. Now, one of the key things that has to happen next year, and I want to get your opinion on this, Tim, is I'm sure Lincoln Riley is it's going to be expected. You need to block, because if you don't block, guess what? The guys that we just talked about, those guys that block will get on the field. If you do not block for the running game or sell the pass play when it doesn't involve you, well, then you better be blocking. If you're not, you're going to be on the bench. What are your thoughts?
Offenses are people don't realize it. A lot of people don't realize in running plays that absolutely the job out there on the outside, and having larger receivers, by the way, is always an advantage with leverage on smaller corners. I remember seeing Drake London and Pittman getting out there and getting after guys in the secondary and just absolutely manhandling. But it is true, it's a mantra that they started last year. No blocky, no rocky, So if you want to get those looks, if you want to get those touches, you better be doing your part on run plays to get out there and stick to your blocks. Because a lot of times those blocks in the second level, they usually are done by wide receivers. Are the difference between a 5 to an 8 yard pickup, to one going all the way to the house. So if you're taking a playoff, if you're not getting targeted and you're getting down on yourself, you're not doing your blocking and you're not doing what you're supposed to do when you have a chance to be out there and prove to Lincoln Riley that you're a team player, because a lot of the rhetoric I'm hearing from this team, a lot of the culture is built on the fact that the unselfishness, that you're playing for your brother, that you're out there, you're doing your best on every single rep. If you're not doing that, you're probably gonna find yourself losing some playing time.
I got a question for you, Tim, and I got a question for the chat. Tell me the wide receiver, the USC wide receiver, who's going to have the most touchdowns next year in 2023.
Most touchdowns. I'm probably going to say Mario Williams. I'm going with Mario Williams most touchdowns.
And just throw out a number. What do you think Mario's going to have?
I'll go with 9. I go with 9 because here's why I'm saying 9, because I think they're going to be spread around a lot. But I think he's going to get a lot of those. I think a lot of these guys have the ability to break. Of all the guys that have the breakaway speed, I think he's one of them. Like I was talking about, you get him earlier. I kind of tipped my hand by the fact that I said that I think he just has a nose for the end zone, nose first down, just a nose to get the ball down the field. So I think he's only because he's going to get more touches than Zach Branch. I think Zach Branch actually is going to do a heck of a lot too. They're going to try to use him. He's going to be up there as well. You can't bet against Brendan Rice, but I'll go with Mario Williams.
Okay.
Hold on. Zombie just correct. If I'd seen this before, I might have changed it too. Singer, Zombie's going with Singer, and I think that's a hell of a good choice right there.
And Roger Dodger has Branch with 14, and James Drayton has Singer with 10 TDs. I agree with James and Zombie. They have Singer with 10. I am also going to say Singer with 10. Yeah, Singer is that guy's going to go off.
But that's what we're talking about, Rick. They're literally, it is so disgusting. I really am looking forward to having conversations with Ohio State fans telling me that they
absolutely.
This is insane. And
one part of the equation, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Tim. One part of the equation that we're not talking about is who, is it can be Devin Brown, or I forget the other guy that's competing. What's up, Jason? For the starting quarterback job at Ohio State. They still need to determine who their quarterback is going to be, right? You got Caleb Williams throwing to these guys. It's like a surgeon. It's going to be ridiculous. And here's the challenge for Lincoln Riley, okay? You've got great wide receivers. You got a Heisman quarterback. You've got a solid offensive line that's got some depth new pieces, but it's coming together. And you got the running backs. So Lincoln Riley has to create a game plan to possess the football, give the defense rest, fewer plays, basically minimize the time the defense is playing. And by doing that and having longer touchdown drives, a la the first 9-minute drive of the Cotton Bowl against Tulane, that is going to benefit your defense. You have plenty of talent to possess the ball and have long drives and really preserve your defense, because as you know, Tim, the first 6 games are manageable. The last 6 games and any games after that, Pac-12 championship game, college football playoff, which is the expectation, that is that's gonna put some pressure on your defense.
Yeah, true. Oh. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Matt. Good to see you. Everyone, Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire. How you doing, Matt?
All right. Glad to join your special Saturday show. And that's a really good discussion that you're in the middle of. But, so just to kind of pick up this theme, I think that early in the season, when you want to get guys on defense getting reps so that you have your established pecking order for Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame, the season officially begins against San Jose State. It unofficially begins with that October 14th game against Notre Dame in South Bend. So I would make the nuanced point, Rick, that in the first half of the season, or at least the first few weeks of the season, probably not too much of a need to emphasize ball control and time of possession, because you actually want that defense to be on the field. You want that defense to be in a multiplicity of live situations. But then when you get to that Notre Dame game, then absolutely, you definitely want the 8-minute touchdown drive rather than the quick strike. So like that's going to be a tension point in general over the whole season. But I think more particularly because the schedule's backloaded in that front-loaded portion, you will want to at least see what the defense can do in a lot of different situations, such that it doesn't become essential to hold the ball for 35, 37, 38 minutes. But then when you go against Sam Hartman and Notre Dame, and when you go against Utah, when you go against Michael Penix in Washington, yes, like you will absolutely need to be holding that ball in the mid-30s at least if you want a good chance of winning a game. So just like that's kind of like the nuance within the nuance for the USC season.
Well, I'm interested to see this year with the Kion bars, with the bigger guys like Lucas up front. I'm wondering if we're actually going to try to challenge them to make them one-dimensional. I think we're just like we did before with the better safety depth we have. I think we're probably also going to be able to stop a lot of those, like we saw against with Pine going crazy. Although we took away the run game, they were still able to throw the ball all over the field against us. I think that the defense, along with what you're talking about, the ability for us to run the ball with the bigger offensive linemen, bringing over the big linemen from Florida and being able to run the ball down throws and control the ball will be huge. But I think they're both going to work together. And I do believe that they're going to keep scores for the other team down. What do you think, by the way? Who's your guy for the largest touchdown, the leader in touchdowns for the Trojans this year?
My first instinct is to go with Dorian Singer. And it's mainly because like he already knows the lay of the land. He already knows the landscape. And so I think that just gives him a leg up. And that's not a commentary on the others. I just think that he has built-in experience. And also, like, we saw this firsthand in Tucson last October. Like the catches that he makes are
the one in the end zone, the one-handed catch in the end zone. That was pretty amazing. And
so he just has a level of upside that is unmatched. And I think that makes him stand out. And, like Caleb Williams, he's brilliant, but like if he throws a ball that's in jeopardy, Singer's going to go get that 50-50 ball, or if we don't call it a 50-50, maybe a 60-40 ball. Singer naturally stands out as the guy who's going to come down with that contested catch and make a big play out of it. He just checks so many boxes as an elite playmaking wide receiver.
Yeah, you got me looking ahead too. I thought the reason why I went with that one is I went with the fact that Mario Williams and Caleb Williams had that connection going back. But I will admit I completely forgot about the transfer from Arizona. I think you guys have a winner there. A question here from Gixter Squid. Hey Matt, always love Trojans Wire. We all do. If you guys aren't watching, if you guys aren't reading over there at Trojans Wire, you guys are completely missing out. Any news on the spring format? Same as last year. So is it going to be the same format that they had last year for the spring game?
I don't know about the format, but I know it's going to be Saturday at noon, and I'm going to be there, and I know that you're going to be watching, and
we'll be there.
And the main thing is, let's see some hitting, let's see some tackling.
Well, that's what it is.
Let's see that defense show up, because there's not much we need to see with the offense. The offense is stay healthy, be upright, don't go to the infirmary. With the defense, we need to see what these guys are made of. And of course, no one should be freaking out if it doesn't go great, because, we have the summer and August camp to look forward to. But if we get anything from the defense in this spring game, then that'll be a nice little catapult into the spring. And of course, there's at least one or two, maybe 5, 10 transfer portal prospects thinking, do I join an Alex Grinch defense in pursuit of a national championship? And you don't know who's going to be watching, but there's going to be plenty of attention. And so if the defense can make at least some highlight plays, some things to just catch the eye of other transfers who are going to be looking on before that May transfer portal window opens, if the spring game can just do something on defense that makes a splash, that would be a real value add for USC.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's those guys in the middle, right? Get a couple interior defensive linemen, build up that, because I think we have depth everywhere else except for that. I think that's where we might have some trouble. And while we have some big guys that might be able to move inside, and they don't have that side of girth that we're talking about stopping, the line, controlling line of scrimmage, and even collapsing the pocket a little bit. And then, so question really quick here, although we're going off topic here. Let's finish really quick. You guys have some great questions. Let's finish the wide receiver room really fast. So, Rick, let's hit those new guys that you want to talk about.
Well, the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing on Saturday, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Tim and Matt, but is Zach Branch. I think Zach Branch is going to put a show on. This is the closest player, in my opinion, that we're going to see, with all due respect to Dory Jackson, but Zach Branch is the closest thing to Reggie Bush. This kid is electric. He comes from a great family. The guy is a workout fiend. He does phenomenal things. He's fast. He's been doing punt returns. The guy's going to be electric.
Yeah, and what you are stealing my thunder a little bit. So that's what we teased with at the top of the show was the Heisman. Is this our number 9 Heisman Trophy winner? Then that's assuming, of course, that Caleb doesn't win it this year, right? Or that Mekhi Lemon does nothing to say for it. Someone else pops up. Maybe it's Miller time. Miller takes over the reins from Williams, and he gives it a run. I'm assuming when I say this, though, this is number 9 outside the quarterback room. And if there's going to be a guy that's going to be able to do it, then it's going to be him. I want to try something really quick. We have a little bit of footage here, and I don't know what the volume is on this really quick, but I just want to show you, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with this young man, I want you guys to just get a quick look at what he can do. Now, I want you guys to tell me right away in the chat, if it's too loud, you guys let me know, and I can pull it right away. Okay, so sorry, I'm hearing it's a little bit too loud, but you can go ahead and search it up for you if you want. But So I want to show the end one there where it's literally the dude is jogging to the end zone. This is the kind of speed this guy has. And, you know, when you ever have a guy like Reggie Bush did, where it looks like everybody's moving a little bit slower, like he's moving at a different speed than everybody else. His elusiveness, his way to run. If you have a chance, go back and look at the I don't know, it was the All-American game, whatever, but he takes the kickoff back for a touchdown in that All-Star game. This guy has, and I talked about this on an earlier show, I do not, you know, Adoree Jackson, amazing Trojan. Just one of my all-time favorites. But I think that right here, we might have the closest thing to number 5 that we've had on the campus since Reggie left. Any thoughts on that, you guys?
I would just want to mention specifically that, you know, if USC can get some high impact plays on kick returns, you know, we didn't get that from Malik Brown last season. Like anytime USC can get a quick kick return to either shorten the field or just answer with a score, and anything to relieve the burden on Caleb Williams and this offense, like that would be an equation changer for the program. So obviously, you know, the impact will be felt in many facets of the game, but like if kick returns can be a significant piece of the puzzle, that is an important pillar to mention here.
I agree with you, Matt. And that's part of this young man's dynamic. Zach Branch wants to be great. He will put that together in the punt return, kick return. We'll have to wait and see, but obviously in the passing game. And this young man in his 3 years at USC will win a Heisman. Book it. It's going to happen. He came to USC for a reason. He's got the genes. He's got the athleticism. He's got the desire. His work ethic is just off the charts. And he wants to be great. And he came to the right place to do it. So Ohio State, hey, let's see let's compare our wide receiver room to your wide receiver room this year, and let's see what happens. But this kid, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think of all the guys that are not a signal caller, I mean, I think it's gonna be hard to unseat a signal caller and Lincoln Riley's offense. You know the quarterbacks are going to put up huge points. You know that the as great as we have at running back and wide receiver, we're also pulling in the greatest quarterbacks in the country, and it's really become with the exception, there are exceptions, but it's really become a quarterback award, right? It really has moved from a running back heavy back in the 70s and early 80s. Now it's really, we had a couple wide receivers pop up. I'm blanking out, and you guys are laughing at me. The receiver from Alabama.
Yeah, Devontae Smith.
But that's rare. You really have to have a special season, and quite frankly, you need to have some quarterbacks no one's really stand out as a quarterback.
Sure. There is one thing that deserves to be mentioned here if we're talking about USC receivers as Heisman contenders, and that's the simple reality that D.D. Westbrook was a top 4 Heisman vote getter when Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. So like that's the foremost argument, or at least the foremost name to cite when saying, hey, a Lincoln Riley receiver, not just a Lincoln Riley quarterback, can make a serious run at the stiff arm trophy.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But as we were talking about, speaking of Heisman winners, I'm sorry, I have to do it each week, and I'm gonna keep it super short this time. 474 days, you guys over there at the NCAA. 474 days, and you guys still haven't figured this stuff out. Okay, Baker, one job. Please make it happen. I would love to see it again. I talked about it the very first time. Coming up this fall during one of the Saturdays. I don't know which game it's going to be, but it's going to be the 5,000th day. And that number 5 is an important number. What a great time to give one of the all-time college football greats, an absolute GOAT on the field, his Heisman Trophy that he earned. Whatever his stepdad took, right, didn't make him run faster, didn't make him abuse those defenders like he did. Everything he did on the field. And also one more quick thing before we have any guys in the background. He got the money well after, right? His family received, and by the way, allegedly, I should say that, allegedly received this money, at the end of his junior season or sophomore season. He was well at USC for well over a year before this, if any alleged money took place. This is not a Cam Newton situation where people are buying you to come to your school. So one more thing I wanted to cover before we move into the end of our show. We're moving out of game time and moving into the post-game wrap-up. But this week we lost a great friend. Some of you guys might know him as GoldandBlueDude. I knew him as Chris. He was an amazing guy, huge. If you think you're a big college football fan, if you think you have college football knowledge, I would love to see you go up against this guy at any moment. One quick story. Basically, his family he was driving his family so nuts with just talking about college football, talking about West Virginia football, that, oh man, dude, you need an outlet for this. And you're so gifted. And he started his own channel, and it was blowing up. Unfortunately, Chris passed away earlier this week. He had been suffering from some illnesses that he kept very secret from everyone else. The guy was a trooper. He's going to be well missed. On my point, personally, I don't think I'd be here right now in front of this camera for him. I want to show a couple of times. He says, hey, so go ahead and publicize your show. I said, I don't have a show. And then after that, every day, he would always get on me about starting a show. So, Chris, man, I love you. Miss you. Did you guys know Chris? I know you did, Rick.
I didn't know. I never met him personally, but God bless Chris and his family. I too, the story you just shared, Tim. I have friends and family that I always talk about USC football. I've been talking about it for 20 years, and I talk my smack, right? And I've got the facts, like Mark says, bring the facts. I bring the facts, and I talk trash to all fan bases, but it's not talking trash. You're trash. It's talking facts. And love us or hate us, and a lot of people hate us. That's okay. One day, maybe you'll be as good as USC. But I was looking at starting a channel with my friends. And so I did my research, and I came across Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. And I love Mark's take because it's factual. The dude has things memorized that I don't know how he does it, but a wealth of knowledge. And I also came across Chris, GoldandBlueDude, and I love Chris's passion and his love for West Virginia and just his knowledge of his program. And I related to that. And so I would watch these two shows to give me ideas. And my passion for USC football. So God bless Chris. He inspired me. And then when I met you, Tim, on Mark's show, as well as Tony Altimore, and then we decided, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and do a USC postgame on the voice of college football. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And then here we are today because of you viewers. Thank you very much. Guys like Gixxer Squid, Roger Dodger. I don't want to leave anybody out, but all of you had asked for us to are you going to do an off-season show? So here we are. And yeah, God bless Chris. And he leaves a fiance and 4 children. So may rest in peace.
Yeah, I wanted to add that in. So he is leaving behind some loved ones that could use some help. I dropped the link for the GoFundMe for Chris in the chat. I know the Trojan family, we're known for our big hearts and also our big wallets out there. So listen, give what you can, whatever you can. He's got a lovely, he's got 4 young kids that really could use the Trojan family's help at this time. So God bless you, Chris. Gonna miss you, buddy.
Well done, Tim.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads us into our post-game wrap-up. This is the part, you guys, where you guys are the stars the whole time. You know, we're all up here just talking, but we really invite you guys to join us. I'm going to drop the link to the StreamYard in the chat. Please feel free to join us. Otherwise, you can go ahead. I've started a couple comments throughout this. And then Rick, I know Rick is doing his due diligence and going in each week. Those of you guys are leaving us comments in our videos. We would like to highlight some of you guys and appreciate you. We're starting to build some momentum. I think we had like 35 on one of our videos recently. I want to see if we can get that comments to 50, you guys. It really helps grow the show. It gets more people out, but also it allows us to engage with you outside of the show. So look forward to you. Also, one last thing, if you want to, you can hit us up on our Twitter accounts. Matt, yours, this is at Trojans Wire.
Yeah, I'm Trojans Wire. Yep.
And then I'm at Trojan Conquest, and Rick's at LBC Trojan. So if you have any questions for any of us, go ahead and drop the DM to us, and we will definitely address those. Rick, did you have any? What's the first one? I know you have a couple. So which one do you want to highlight?
I'd like to get you guys to comment on these. Matt and Tim. Friend of the show, Truck Stop Gumby says, "Last dance for Tommy T. It's going to be an interesting year." What do you see, Matt? This last go around in the Pac-12, going to be some surprises for USC?
Well, I mean, George Kliavkoff sent like a goodbye message with that schedule of putting Utah the week after Notre Dame, f you very much, and then Washington and Oregon. So basically the three biggest games of the season in the conference in a 4-week span, the four biggest games of the season in a 5-week span, and no rest from weeks 4 through 12. And so like we've talked about this before, but Utah fans have been saying, "Oh, but you get week 13 off. Wow, like that's such an advantage." Well, it's only an advantage if USC gets to the Pac-12 championship game. If USC doesn't get to the Pac-12 championship game, then that 9-week grind, weeks 4 through 12, will have successfully denied USC a spot in the conference title game. So, hey, you get a full year of free membership at the fitness club, but first you're going to have to eat 100 pieces of pizza in the next 2 days. Like that's the deal that USC's been offered. So that sums up the last go round in the Pac-12. And I just reiterate that last year's season, the 2022 season, before USC committed to leave, it was a cushy schedule. It was set up to make USC succeed. It was an example of putting the cash cow in the conference in a position to do well. But then as soon as USC left, as soon as USC announced its intent to leave, then we get the worst possible schedule arranged in the worst possible way. You counterbalance this against the reality that, Oregon and Washington, they both have a mid-season off week, in October, exactly when you want your off week. And that off week precedes their meeting in Seattle. So like both the Ducks and Huskies are being set up in a position where like they get rest right before their biggest games of the season. USC not. So like that's the Pac-12's parting gift to USC. And it's just up to the Trojans to flip the bird and make their statement on the field.
Yeah, and you had a great article just the other day. I think it was yesterday. But you're talking about our schedule moving into the Big Ten. This is just you alluded to the fact that we're really getting the stepchild treatment right now. That we're out the door and we're being ignored. So I do like the fact though that this is also this is great bulletin board material for the team. They're ready. We have the talent to make that run, and it'll be a great testament. And listen, that doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. And if we can handle this year's schedule, talk about a feather cap moving into 2024, that they do that run and come through it, hopefully with a few nicks or unscathed, will be amazing.
You have a question, Tim, or would you like another one?
Go ahead and give me another comment real quick. Yeah, I'll pop these. We'll do them in order. We'll do your comments and then we'll bring some. We have a bunch of questions from the chat.
I'm sorry. Did you want me to share another one?
Yeah, go ahead and share another one.
Okay, so we have Guy Smithson. His comment is, SC next year on the big stage. SC next year on the big stage TV will make a big difference in recruiting. Tim, your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Just really quickly, guys, can we keep race completely out of our chat? This is football, not your politics or whatever. Let's keep that completely out. I'm sorry, Rick. You move over to Matt because I was taking care of the chat.
Guy Smithson says, SC next. Yeah.
So in terms of USC's prominence and that helping the Trojans in recruiting, the main thing is to do well when you get those main stage games. Because it's a backloaded schedule, because everyone's going to be watching the Notre Dame game, the Utah game, the Washington game, and the Oregon game. Just all eyes on USC in those four specific games, and it's up to the Trojans to just deliver. So like they have the stage, but then of course you have to do something with it. And one could make the argument that, well, hey, if USC is losing a 41-38 classic, then that certainly doesn't hurt recruiting. And as far as that goes, that might be true. But like USC will need to win those kinds of games. So if they play out that way, like the ideal scenario, of course, let's actually hold an opposing team under 35 points. But like USC will need to win at least its share of games. So like right now, if you told me USC wins 2 of those 4 games against Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon, I mean, like to me, that's the floor. That's the floor for this season. Because if USC does win 2 of those 4, and let's say Notre Dame's one of the losses, so that means USC wins 2 of 3 against Utah, Washington, Oregon, Trojans are definitely in the Pac-12 title game. I mean, that's a lock. If USC beats 2 of Utah, UW, and UO, so that's the floor for this season. And if USC at least reaches that floor, should definitely be a positive in recruiting for the future.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talent in Southern California and California in general this year. A lot of it concentrated right here in Southern California at Mater Dei and at Bosco. So I think that if we win, I think a couple other things are going to come into it. But I think if we win and we give them every opportunity to stay home and be in a winning program. The first year they came in, it was a little bit late for them to recruit. This year, they had their first full year of recruiting, but even during the whole cycle, they're kind of still in a show it to me phase. Now they've shown what they can do, and I think they're going to take it to the next level. Gerard Martinez at 247 always says that recruiting usually lags a year, so basically if you have a great season, you really won't see the full effects of that until the next recruiting class. And I think we had a great season. We ended, not the strongest end, but at least now we're showing this not just an idea. Can Riley succeed over in Southern California, or will be this year made the narrative will be, can Grinch's defense actually stop somebody? So these are opportunities for USC and Riley and Grinch to turn up this recruiting to another level. The question, there's no question that here the local recruits are amazing, and we are going to do well with them. Will we be able to, though, to lock down the best talent in Southern California? That's going to be on the field. And I think the early start we're going to have, we're going to rack up a lot of wins. We're going to be rated pretty damn high. And if we can get through that little gauntlet that Matt was talking about in the season, we should do very well in recruiting.
Yeah, and I'm looking for 2024 recruiting an emphasis on defense, because that will be the big tell. If Lincoln Riley can get some top defensive players, him and the staff, to USC, then it's going to change the trajectory moving into the Big Ten in 2024. Also remember that year we have games to open the season against LSU along with Notre Dame. Yeah. Okay. And you're looking at a Big Ten championship game and then college football playoff. A little number, the number 3. Okay. John McKay won his first national championship in his 3rd year at USC. John Robinson in 1978, his 3rd year as coach, won a national championship at USC. Pete Carroll in his 3rd year won a national championship at USC. In 2024, Lincoln Riley, that'll be his 3rd year, and you are judged by national championships at USC. Lincoln Riley knows it. He said in his press conference, that is why he came. So all eyes will be on Lincoln Riley, obviously, this year. But in 2024, that is the expectation. Let's get it done.
Well, and you'll be looking at it's a good thing, because you talk about defense, bringing in defensive recruits, not always known for having the big linemen, but we have Aiden Breland from Mater Dei. Then you got the kid from La Salle, Cunningham. You got a quarterback in Williams, right? Max Williams' brother. So there's a lot of talent, and I like your momentum. I love that number, and it's kind of crazy because both the 2 of the guys you named, Robinson, that was already rolling right with McKay, but McKay had some sketchy years, and they were
2 losing records. in 60 and 61, they had losing records.
And they turned it around. And
Exactly.
and so, with Pete also, we were coming around and he came off that kind of weird year, but we saw the momentum. And then, but with Robinson, Robinson lost his first game, didn't he? I think my dad told me something.
Yeah.
He dropped his first game.
And he won the rest. He lost to Missouri that first game.
Well, Lincoln Riley is just kind of like just hitting the floor running. So, I think that he definitely is on that pace for year 3, maybe pull a miracle here or there. We could have it in year 2. That wouldn't that be an amazing story? All right. Any more comments, Rick?
I've got a couple more. I don't know if you have one from the chat or if there's a call on the line. If we have,
I've actually been derelict in my duties, and I have not even dropped the link into the chat.
Okay.
Very sorry, guys.
So
but I'll go ahead. I'll get that while I put the chat in. So, one question from Adam Beast Media. I'll tee it up for one of you guys, but it's, who is the backup quarterback as of today?
I'll go ahead and say that's Miller Moss. Malachi Nelson's the 5-star recruit that is class of 2023. He had I think surgery, or he had an injured labrum. I don't know if there was surgery is involved, but Miller Moss, this is going to be his 3rd year in the program. He was a 4-star recruit under the other coaching regime from Bishop Alemany, very capable quarterback. And I know the coaching staff doesn't have any concerns if Miller Moss has to come to the game. So,
there's no doubt it's Miller Moss. I mean, it's right. A full agreement, everyone. It's Miller Moss, pretty much hands down.
Matt, would you agree?
I would agree, and I would just reiterate something I've said previously here at the Voice of College Football, and that is that, while it is true that the defense gets the first half of the season to kind of work its way into form and to give Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch a sense of, okay, who's going to be ready to be on that starting lineup for the Notre Dame game? While all of that is true, and that all just remains intact, it is also true that USC can really use some blowout wins, some super duper blowouts in those first few games against San Jose State and Nevada, so that Miller Moss gets significant snaps in the second half, and so that USC can build his confidence, build his game reps, so that, if the unthinkable happens, we all know what that is, that Miller Moss will have more seasoning, more precision, more polish. Because, he got a 4th quarter against Colorado. Boy, that sure felt like a junior varsity football game. Like, you'd like to see Miller Moss get more reps, more consistently. I mean, again, and like, this is how Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Dabo Swinney build Goliaths, because their teams blow out the cupcakes and they're able to cycle their depth pieces at all the positions and give them substantial reps in second halves of those games, so that they build up their knowledge, they build up their live game awareness. That's how you get a machine rolling. And so it will be important for USC to, be up 35 at halftime, so that Miller Moss can get real snaps, hopefully like midway through the 3rd quarter, he can come in, get more reps, and just develop, a level of familiarity and comfort that we didn't really get to see last season, because the defense was allowing games to be close deep into the 4th quarter against teams that, had no business staying with USC, like Cal 41-35, Arizona 45-37. Defense needs to get cracking so that Miller Moss gets more of a look this season, because he deserves it too for his loyalty to the program.
Okay, and then we have another one here. Donnell Smith, and he's asking us just really point blankly, who do we see starting at cornerback? And corner, I mean, I think that there's a reason why Christian Roland Wallace came over. I think that maybe I don't know. I haven't seen any of the practice. I'm assuming, though, a guy like that's not coming over here if he's going to be riding the bench. So I think that he might be rolling that Mekhi Blackman position and try to lock down one side. He's another one of the guys we pulled over from Arizona. And then I'm thinking, just want to hear, I think Jacoby Covington. What I've been hearing about Jacoby Covington, I have no inside information, just hearing practice notes, people talking. I think it'd be Covington, but don't sleep on guys like Damani Jackson, Sierra Wright. They're going to be right in there competing. I think they'll be also right there because there's a little bit, at the other corner there was kind of a revolving door. I'm hoping we could lock it down between two, but I'm definitely thinking those are the two, and the next two will probably be Damani Jackson as throughout the year kind of coming in, and Sierra Wright's been a staple over there as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that Christian Roland Wallace, I see him at one starting cornerback spot. And then, I think Sierra Wright has had a great – he played a lot of games last season. From what I understand, he's gotten bigger. He's standing out in practice and spring ball. Again, we don't see any practices. We just what we hear. And it's going to be him and Jacoby Covington, I think, for that starting role. But we have the depth, and there's going to be different situations where maybe there's one receiver that's a better matchup, but they're going to be rotating in the whole time. And like you said, Damani Jackson, it's been reported, and it's taken him some time to get right. And coming back from an ACL, it's different because you remember he got hurt in high school. And then when you step up to this level, and then you have to trust your knee, and there's a mental process. I know this. My daughter played club soccer. We had 5 girls on the team tear 7 ACLs within 3 years. And it is a process to come back. It's one thing to do all the rehab, and there can be setbacks. And then it's the mental thing. Once you get on the field, can you make those cuts? Are you the same player? And there's a speed adjustment. And Damani had to, and think of what comes with him. He's a 5-star recruit from modern day. He's got a label on him, right? And so, oh yeah, you didn't play your senior year in high school, and now you're coming to USC, and all eyes are on you. And but they'll bring him along slowly, and he'll be a force towards the end of the year as well.
I think the main point of emphasis from me, because it's something I have emphasized before, and I'm going to continue to emphasize it. And not that like these questions aren't good questions. They are good questions. They're natural questions. They're football questions. That's what we're here for. But I would just caution everyone that who's starting on day one, who's starting, on the first game of the season. In a lot of seasons, that question would be hugely significant. And obviously, when USC played Alabama in Arlington in 2016, like who was starting for that game? That was pretty important. And of course, Clay Helton got the biggest position on the field wrong by starting Max Brown instead of that Sam Darnold guy. But this season, it's not nearly as essential to nail down who's our week 1 starter, because the first several games should be manageable, and you're working toward that Notre Dame game in October. And so, Rick, you made the essential point. They're going to be rotating. They're going to be cycling guys in. Let's just be sure to get a good look at a lot of different people, and then we can figure out the combinations and which one works best, so that Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley know when they go on that plane flight to South Bend, that's when they have to lock it down. That's when they have to know who's the best, who's the most trustworthy. And, we're full of optimism here at USC, and we should be, because it's Lincoln F. Riley. Lincoln, the F stands for, a certain word, not his actual middle name. We should be optimistic, but to just inject a little cautionary note here, like if the defense does slip up in one of those early games against Colorado or Arizona State in late September, it will be interesting to see like who the defense trusts, who Alex Grinch trusts to make a play. So that could become a topic of conversation. Like now in a best case scenario, it won't be, but it could become a topic of conversation. So it just reemphasizes how in the first few weeks against San Jose State and Nevada, it's less about who's starting and it's more about giving everybody significant snaps and getting a feel for which combinations of players work best, which guys communicate the best, which guys seem to just most naturally fit. One of the things about Damani Jackson relative to the secondary is that the USC analysts that I make sure to read, they said like in the brief period of time that he was on the field last year, the secondary just seemed to fit. all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle seem to snap together very neatly more when Domani Jackson was on the field. So, that's just something to keep in mind. It's not a prediction, but it's just something to keep in mind when we look at the configuration of this secondary and how it evolves this season.
Yeah, I want to see him get more in-game reps because we know he has the build, the prototypical build, actually big for position, and the speed. It's going to be, I like the way you're saying he fits in the defense. It's going to be good to see him get some reps and some real-time action. There's a great conversation. We're not going to go too deep into it, but we did talk. If you guys want to look back a couple of weeks, we talked about the secondary, but they're talking, safety. They're talking about Pierce, right? Talk about Zion Branch. Zion Branch getting to the game. Zion Branch was injured last year and player run practices, but he's back and playing. So that's great news for the Trojans with depth.
I just want to mention something because I'm seeing it in the chat. Some people are saying Shane Lee can't tackle. Can we at least just acknowledge he was wearing a cast on his wrist?
Yeah,
like that would kind of sort of get in the way. I'm not saying you can't criticize Shane Lee because that defense didn't perform up to standards, but just let's see a fully healthy Shane Lee without a cast before we give a fuller, more final verdict on his level of play. Just wanted to address that in the chat.
Yeah, no, good call. He was playing injured last year. He's back healthy. My issues aren't with his tackling. I think when he's healthy, I think it's gonna be more just his lateral speed. But that we'll see what happens with that. So Zombie with a great point. He's thinking we have 2 wide receivers with over 1,000 yards. What was it? Lee and Woods? Did they do 1,000 each in the same season?
They might have. I don't know that for a fact.
Can't remember.
That's
a hell of a stat to do. I think it's very reasonable that could happen this year. Question here is, actually, someone asked about Raiola, but I think Riley has backed off Raiola. So Rick and I, we were going to talk about Raiola in the show, but during news and notes, but we backed off that because we're getting Wilt Fong saying, so in January, he's saying he's always going to Georgia. Then next thing is, he's coming to USC. And now all of a sudden he says, now he's going to Georgia. We're not going to play that game going back and forth. It's April. One good sign for them is Deuce Robinson. As we talked about when Deuce in the show we did about Deuce Robinson, is that Robinson and the Raiola family and Dylan are close. So having Deuce on the team is going to be a feather in our cap. Larry Donald wants to know tight ends used during spring game. That's what I'm looking for. I think we're all looking for getting the tight ends in a little bit more, correct? I think that there was a good point that was made. They brought Tabarachi over from linebacker. He's garnering some praise. And then you have Lake McCree, who's put on some size, says he's more familiar with the position, moving over to doing some H-back stuff and getting to know the schemes. So I look forward to getting them involved a little bit more. You guys want anything about tight end?
I'm waiting for the Deuce to get loose. So frankly, tight end's not going to be something that I'm going to be looking for just because Deuce Robinson, and we can say, well, he's a tight end, but he plays essentially like a wide receiver. That nuance aside, we're not going to get the full Lincoln Riley tight end package without Deuce Robinson. So just personally, I'm not going to be focused on that very much at the spring game.
Yeah, because really the only tight end that you have is Lake McCree. You have Jude Wolf, but he's coming back from an injury. You have Carson Tabarachi, who's just converted from linebacker to tight end. You might see a few balls thrown his way, probably not. And then you have Cade Eldridge, an H-back out of Washington, but he doesn't come until the summer. And then you also have Walker Lyons, but he's going to be going on his mission, so he's not going to be
either
2024. So it's going to be Lake McCree. He'll get a few balls, but really it's going to be the wide receivers. It's going to be the running backs.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see McCree and Jude Wolf. I think he'll be fully healthy and participating later in the year. But I think we'll see more like we saw with Drake London, right? Who was kind of this a really, really big receiver out in the slot there that kind of did a lot of the underneath stuff that a receiving tight end would do. I think that you can see Deuce doing that same thing, which will be like you just said, Matt, will be that tight end receiving option for him. Just really quickly, great point. He believes that Singer will be Caleb's security blanket until Deuce gets going. That's an interesting take. Thank you. Right here, just goes back along what I was talking about Raiola. How did Oregon steal Aaron Flowers? We've seen the bag drop before. I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't know. Remember this also, Rick and I had a conversation about the fact that not everybody grew up a Trojan. Some of them grew up Bruins, and we probably don't want to play for the Bruins because they've sucked. So a lot of those guys would become Oregon fans, I think. We can't get in the head of Aaron Flowers. We don't know what's going on there. I can say, though, that there is, I think by the end of this year, it's going to be really clear which team has the trajectory that you want to be on. Let's see if Aaron Flowers wants to be a part of that. Any thoughts, you guys?
Yeah, there's, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but maybe Matt can help me out. But Oregon just hired a defensive coordinator, and it's a new defensive coordinator, and he was at Tulane. And apparently Aaron Flowers had a relationship getting recruited by this gentleman. And that, from what I understand, from what I've read, played a part in his decision-making process. Again, this is April. Easter is tomorrow. We're like beginning the second quarter of recruiting. It's a long stretch. Dylan Raiola was committed to Ohio State last year. And so now he's got love between Georgia, Nebraska, USC. So it's a long process. If that's where he wants to end up, good luck to him.
Chris Hampton is the Oregon defensive coordinator. And just full disclosure, I had to look it up, but just wanted to be able to get that name in.
But that's why you have to go ahead and check out Trojans Wire, because Matt has these details. They're in his articles. So, hey, relationships are part of recruiting.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm okay with him coming over. 45 points and 594 yards by the Trojans in the Cotton Bowl. I'm good with that. Yes, I know it'd be a different level of player over up there in Eugene, but and we know it's gonna be Lanning's defense anyway, really. So it's gonna be one of those situations.
Hey, if he doesn't want to compete with Zion Branch and Christian Pierce, I can understand it. Go to Oregon. The TV media deals coming out. You might be on CW. You might be on USA Network. You're going to be on streaming, but we'll be at the Big Ten on Fox, CBS, or NBC. So good luck, young man.
Here's a good one. Who will lead the team in sacks? I'm going to go with Lucas right off the bat.
Yeah, really.
Ooh, Lucas. That's a great question. You got Lucas, Matt?
Lucas.
I'm going to go with Lucas.
I'm going to go Jamil Muhammad.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I think that would be great, because that would mean that Lucas is drawing double teams and someone else steps up. So sign me up for that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right there.
I mean, the great news is we're going to have a lot. So we got bigger, but we also got a lot more athletic. You got Sullivan. He can get after the quarterback as well. Like you're talking about, Matt, it's all about who they got to account for, which is going to free up some people to have a nice rush. And they moved Corey Foreman with his hand in the dirt. So I think they're going to be platooning guys in. I think we're going to be all over that quarterback, which is great. And if we make him uncomfortable, then we're going to cut down on a lot of those big explosive plays.
Just going to say, if any of you catch me hyping up Corey Foreman, bang me over on the head, okay? Because I do not want to do that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Got to see it before we believe it. I know this is the night before Easter Sunday. We're going to be reading Doubting Thomas scriptures pretty soon, or at least if you're a church-going person. But I'm a Doubting Thomas with Corey Foreman. Please, if I start praising him, you'll know that something's wrong with me. Get my attention. Matt, remember, you're not supposed to praise Corey Foreman. So you just gotta see it before we believe it with him.
Well, I'm just going off of what I'm hearing from players and from Riley, and he has the ability. I think, to me, honestly, I think they had him playing out of position. I think they had him playing with too many responsibilities. I mean, thank God for Corey Foreman. Otherwise, maybe we lose that UCLA game. But I do think that he is a player, and I'm hoping that given this new situation, that he will be able to shine. Notice I did not pick him as the leader in sacks, but I just think he has just too much strength and athleticism not to be able. I just hope maybe he can get off blocks a little bit better. I think that was a problem last year for him. So let's see if he can shed those blocks and get to the quarterback. And then I think really, well, there you go. You got Archer. Maybe that's your alias, Matt. I think that might be your alias. And I think that's it. But we have LBC Rob calling in. LBC, how are you doing, sir?
I'm wonderful, gentlemen.
You got all three of us.
I do. And Mr. Zemek, a pleasure. Big fan.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Tim, you want my question? Or I did want to touch the Reggie Bush thing. I'm not trying to bring race into it at all. But the deal
hold on.
was.
Let me cut you off. Let's just drop that whole conversation.
All right.
I don't want to bring it up. So what?
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you got going for us for a question?
All right, I'll give you a question. Which one bothers you more? 2002 LSU, 2008 Florida, Oklahoma. For me, it's 8 for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, the 2003 team was what makes me mad about that one is because they were ranked number 1 in both polls, and it's just absurd that they didn't play in that BCS game to give I think that they win that game pretty handily. That was a really talented team on both sides of the ball. And then as far as the 2008, that disgusts me because we heard for the whole decade was about California and Pac-12 and throwing the ball around. We played defense here in the SEC and blah, blah, blah. And then USC had the best defense in the country, probably the best linebackers on any team that I've seen across the board. And they don't get to play for the national champion because they lost one. They had an equal record. And because Tim Tebow cries on national television, saying, I will never let this happen. They get to go to a game. I mean, I'm sorry. That one pisses me off the most because that was a national championship caliber team.
Well, and let's remember that if we had the 4-team playoff in 2008, and if we had the 4-team playoff in the Pete Carroll era, there would be a few more trophies in Heritage Hall. Believe you me.
Rick, any thoughts on those two games?
Hey, we get LSU in Vegas in 2024. Hey, that's how college football was. It's the most imperfect sport that there is. And yes, because we lose at Oregon State by 6 points, I don't want to get into it. We don't have enough time.
I don't like get into it either because I think that one hurts the most because you saw it coming. The whole you knew it was going to happen and it was wrong as opposed to 2000. But how it makes it weird, that team was the only team that lost on the road. Both Florida and Oklahoma lost at home and lost after. And when the BCS and the thing, it was usually better to lose early and get back. And it goes back to never mind.
The
Jets' stupid analysis
in all of this, though, is that it makes the win in Corvallis last season that much more impressive because Corvallis has been a graveyard. We've been through it. And for that team to be so mentally tough in that game. And, like the Cotton Bowl left a sour taste in all of our mouths at the end of this past season. But let's just stop for a moment. If that Oregon State game breaks the wrong way, USC might finish the regular season 9-3, maybe even 8-4. It all spins sideways. And we're having very different conversations. And that Oregon State game, it might get lost in the shuffle given how the season ended. But that game meant a ton for the development of the culture and the swagger and the expectations that we rightly associate with USC football. So it's worth mentioning that as well.
Yeah, that game in Corvallis, a close friend of the show told us a story, Rick and I, the story about the fact that he expected Pete Carroll to go in that locker room and light him up. And he just went in very calmly and kind of said to them, that's what happened when you don't practice on Monday, when you don't have the intensity in your practice. This is exactly what happens. And that game up in Corvallis was your typical game where you caught a bunch of guys looking forward, and that's what can happen. And I hope that the players this year realize that's exactly what could happen. Or if you don't take your opponent seriously, like I say, a Cotton Bowl or whatever the situation is, and don't put away teams when you could put them away. You leave the door open, and that's how you can lose a national championship. So I really do hope that the team is laser focused. I don't expect them not to be, but we're gonna have that weird Cal game right in the middle of that gauntlet that could be that Corvallis game. And by the way, let me be very clear. That Oregon State team was a really good team. So I'm not saying it was just some fluke win for the Beavers. And I'm not comparing
Real
them
quick,
to 2023.
what do you guys think of the slope excuse for the Oregon State thing? That is the one Pac-12 field. I never made the Oregon State, or I never played in Oregon State. I've been played on every Pac-12 field but they say the mound, so to speak, is a little more arched, and anyone who's been on a footfield knows that it's kind of a U-shaped in the middle of the field, so when it rains, it can stay on the field and the sidelines go off. Oregon, I imagine it's a little more sloped because they get more rain. And I've heard that is what throws the trajectory off, or that's why Caleb's throws were a bit high and the mound makes it. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard, but considering the problems and Mark's problems that night, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I got you, Rob. Actually, I think it might have had more to do with their corners. They had NFL level. They definitely have an NFL level corner. And so it was just an off night. I know that Max Brown talked about that same exact thing. And he says it's really not that big of an issue. And remember this, a lot of quarterbacks that go into Corvallis and play football, and they're not going to talk about the slope on the field. So did you have anything else for us, Rob?
I do. Just as a big thing of I know we go for, and I know there's nothing to talk about but recruiting rankings right now and people anything, and it's a great deal. I look for a lot more, and the thing with Corey Foreman, I want you guys. One, he's had his hand in the dirt 74% of the snaps that we RSC reported. So it's not this position changes talk. There's little things people watch or coaches watch. It's like how you go between plays. How do you react defensively when the play's the other side and you have no chance to make it? Are you doing like the college jog, as Marvin Lewis, I think, calls it? Do you take plays off when you're not affected? Do you just hustle thing? All
Rob,
those things in Rayshon I've seen.
Nothing. Rob, you got a question somewhere here for us?
And Corey Foreman, I'm with Mr. Zimick. I'm hold off, and you guys believe the position change is not just talk. You think it's actually a thing? Because I'll tell you, someone who played the position, there's not much. An elephant position is no pass responsibility, contain, set the edge, sack the quarterback. If not, that's it.
Maybe that will unlock him. But I'm just saying that we shouldn't invest in the idea of, oh, this is going to be the year. That's pre-2016 Chicago Cubs. And we just don't do that. You can just let's just
guys. I don't think
all the players, and if joins the parade, great.
Matt and Rob, I don't think anybody's saying this is going to be Corey Foreman's All-American and talk about getting a Heisman hype kind of year. I don't think anyone's saying. I think most people are saying they're happy that he's going to get an opportunity to play a different role in the team. Hopefully, it can be beneficial to him. I don't think anybody's cashing in their chips and putting it all on Corey Foreman to have an All-American year. So I think we can stop it. Rob, thank you so much for coming by. We always appreciate you coming by.
Which Big 12 away game you two looking forward to the most, Rick and Tim?
Which Big 10 you mean?
Big 10 road game. Which stadium? Michigan, the Horseshoe. I'm sure you guys saw it.
Yeah, I've never been to the Big House, so I'd like to go and check a game out there. My whole family's from Michigan, and it looks like just an amazing atmosphere. So that's where I want to go.
I want to go to the Big House, and I want to look Jim Harbaugh in the eyes after USC beats them and say, "Hey, what's your deal?" That's what I want to say.
Good.
I remember
who's got
Jim
better
Harbaugh. You're morphing into Bo Schembechler. That's what you are. Got those glasses. You haven't won a big game. You're Bo. And I'm going to ask you, what's your deal? That's what I want.
Matt, any preference?
Hey, I mean, Michigan or the shoe in Columbus, either one like that. Those are the cathedrals. And if you can go into the cathedral there, I mean, and USC did in 2009. So, but being able to do that again would be a mountaintop experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Rob. You've been great calling in. We always appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much for your support of the show. And we've gone way over time here. So just want to thank you, Matt, for showing up here with Rick and me. We always welcome you to visit and your insights. You're awesome as always.
You guys are too.
Fight on, Matt.
All right, guys. So remember, we have the spring game next Saturday. We will be having our show the following Sunday. And please feel free to join us. We are going to have a special guest. We're hoping to welcome in John Jackson, JJ, one of the most amazing. If you're our generation, this was our receiver. To me, this was the first really great receiver in USC. We've had some great, old guys out there going to tell me about people. Yes, but this was a guy who was actually, when we were changing from, the tailback U and running, we were throwing the ball. We had Rodney Pete, right? We had Todd Marinovich, and we were really throwing the ball around. And this was our first guy really to start racking up receptions. And I'm really excited. I'm a huge fan to have him on here. Rick did a great job of introducing me to him, and he should be here with us. Rick, thoughts?
Check us out next Sunday. We'll have JJ, and we can ask him some specific questions about the spring game and find out who he thinks the top wide receiver is going to be. Maybe ask him how many touchdowns the Dorian Singer is going to get.
All right, awesome.
So join us.
Fight on, you guys. Thank you. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the spring game.
Right on.
Happy Easter, everybody.